Last week, the meta flipped with the release of the Blossom in Fate expansion. This week, in week 2, we're starting to see things expand. Some decks are climbing way quicker than they should, and control is creeping back in. And a couple of decks out there are quietly farming whilst everybody else argues about aggro. This week in Meta Movers, we're going to talk about what is on the rise and what is flying under the radar, and make sure that you are fully informed with what to play this week to get the most out of ladder. Let's go. In Meta Movers 3, we saw aggro and ramp decks pretty much dominate ladder as people raced to Grandmaster. But this week, the ladder is starting to stabilize and we're seeing something interesting happening. Players are actually starting to punish that aggro greed. And don't get me wrong, aggro is still great and ramp is still present, but control and rule breaking decks are starting to emerge. So what is on the rise this week? Well, first of all, we are seeing Odd Haven starting to really dominate on ladder. This really does punish predictable curves. It really thrives on opponents overcommitting, and it has very good answers to aggro. As I said in my deck guide, which I just released this week, go and check that out. There are multiple ways to heal, mainly Gilnelis and the Touré, and that gives this deck very cheap and effective heal to counter aggro. In addition to that, there's quite a lot of wards, so it's hard for the storm units to get through. Now, Kokushiro and Odd Haven are a new archetype, so maybe it's just that people are still figuring out how to play against it, but there are a lot of top players, a lot of pros have reached Grandmaster and are posting some of the highest Haven scores with this deck or one very, very similar to it. Now, if you watched my This Is Illegal video, you already know that this deck isn't rising quietly anymore. I swear to God, guys, I'm not Mystic Maid. I'm not this good at predicting. This isn't just about promoting the videos that I released this week. But if you genuinely go and look at the ladder, you're going to see that Fennie Control is actually rising through the ranks. It's not just my opinion. Many of the Meta Snapshot websites out there also have this actually higher than I have it in my own Snapshot. And this deck is also very, very good at farming the mid-range decks that we see. It's got much better tools to deal with aggro, and it does pretty well against the kind of Evolution Sandolphin decks as well. Essentially, the late game in this deck is very, very hard to deal with, and it can just out-bomb your opponent, right? When you're getting it at half, if not a third of the cost. And most importantly, you know, the new tools in here like Sloth of the Crest Petal, for example, just really help this thing survive in the early game. So Fennie is no longer a meme, and we actually saw the one player actually reach rank 1 of the Dragoncraft ratings with this deck. So definitely go and give this one a chance on ladder to get your head around how it works, and check out my guide if you want more help. Now, a couple of ones to watch. Spell-based combos seem to be very much on the rise in the next 2 decks that I'm sharing with you. The first one is in the form of Egg Portal. This is not a new deck. However, it did receive some pretty good upgrade tools in the form of Imari to help you deal with enemy boards, and of course the ability to draw more effectively than you could last season. And this deck is all about getting the right tools in hand, so anything that allows you to draw effectively is going to increase the win rate of this deck. And actually, it does very well against aggro, with, of course, the eggs giving you all of the chip heal, in addition to things like Sylvia and Gilnelis being able to extend that heal. Now, I'm talking from personal experience when I tell you that there is an execution barrier to this deck. It's not quite in the combo rush category of difficulty, but I absolutely suck with this deck. I promise one day to get decent at it and bring you a guide, but that doesn't mean it's not powerful just because I suck at it. We all have certain decks that our brains just find difficult to execute, and I'm still getting my head around this one, but I'm keen to learn because it is very, very powerful, and we're seeing it played at a high level right now. And I believe this is a deck that's still relatively underplayed actually on ladder relative to its power. Now, speaking of spell-based combos, we also have the return of Spell Boost Rune. And quite a number of the Japanese pros I noticed were playing either this deck or very similar. A couple of people didn't run any Womduses. This version has just a single Womdus, which I quite like. And what it does do is it does include a lot of the new tools. So we see, for example, the Wood Song, a couple of copies of that, and we see, most importantly, the Aya Dawn Blossom coming into play. So we're looking for the old-fashioned declimb into Q1, you know, create a giant unit and win that way, but we can create these insane tempo turns, right? With the Blaze Destroyers, the Dawn Blossoms costing almost nothing, and obviously Womdus if you get that combo off as well, giving you a giant barriered board. So like I say, quite a number of the top pros were playing this very, very successfully. So this could definitely be a future star. I don't know where it will settle when I do the meta snapshot this weekend. So definitely come back and find out where this lands, but it is doing pretty decent and going under the radar. And of course, I'm keen to give this one a shot myself and bring you guys a guide for it soon. Now, a deck that I think is still a little bit of a hidden gem in the meta, but is picking up speed for sure and is doing really well, is Milteo Aggro. Now, Milteo is a new card, so obviously a lot of players aren't necessarily going to have all the new cards yet. And this playstyle is very different because it's kind of an aggro deck, but it's kind of like an aggro deck that has really slow start. I kind of feel like, to make an athletics comparison, it feels like the Linford Christie of... I can't believe I'm saying this. It feels like the Linford Christie of Shadowverse. Linford Christie was a 100-meter sprinter, for those who don't know. He was always really slow out of the blocks. He wasn't the fastest out of the blocks, but he finished really strong. But it's still a sprint, right? It's still a 100-meter sprint. So I feel like it is a good comparison with this. It's not like hitting face instantly, but when it gets going, my God, this thing's scary. Why is that? Because essentially you are able to use Milteo to kind of clear the board, right? It destroys 6 other units when it comes out. And by this point, you've built up so many departed, right? Ghosts, bats, that every time you play these cheap 1-cost or 0-cost units, they're free. They evolve free, sorry. And so you get heal back from the bats, you get storm damage from the ghosts. And in addition to that, with the Tyrannical Fists and the Rage of Serpents, this can actually add quite a lot of reach. And the icing on the cake is the Dogged One. Now, we haven't really found a home for Dogged One, but I definitely think this is it. Dogged One is superb in this deck because obviously evolving once you've Milteo'd and getting the Storm when your opponent plays Super Evo means this thing's doing 5 storm damage for only 3 cost. So this is a little bit of a hidden gem, definitely underplayed on ladder right now, but again, if you're a big Abysscraft fan and you want to craft the cards, then go ahead and check this one out. So where does this leave us? To me, Blossoming Fate Week 2 is kind of like classic second week meta patterns, to be honest. Like you see all the aggro in week 1, everybody's trying to kind of get quick wins and get up the ladder. And then people realize that and they start playing control, they start playing anti-aggro and punishing those aggro decks. And that's kind of where we're at, really. I think what we're going to start to see in the next week is much more refinement of the better decks and probably introducing a little bit of hate tech, right? As in other words, like key cards that are going to help deal with what they're seeing. So I think that's where we're going to be going next, is really starting to settle down and cement the meta. But it's an interesting time, right? There are lots of decks that are playable right now. If you don't know, go and see my meta snapshot. You'll see there's an incredible diversity. I'm really happy with this expansion set. I think it's not overpowered, but it certainly has changed the meta and for the better. But let me know what you guys think. I'm really keen to hear of your experiences in the first couple of weeks. Are there any decks that are quite spicy that you think are kind of going under the meta? Let me know down below in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed this one. My closing thoughts would be to go and give Odd Bishop a go. I think it's in a really nice spot at the minute. And also, if you've got the cards, try that Fennie Control. That is a lot of fun, that deck. If you're interested in kind of like experimenting a bit, like I am going to be doing this week, then Egg Portal and Spell Witch are probably the ones to go with. Or if you just kind of want like a steady climber, then I think the Militia Abyss, Milteo Abyss deck would be a good one. Anyway, this is all feeding into the next meta snapshot out this weekend, so we'll see where some of these stick. And if you enjoyed this video, guys, then maybe check out this one next.